everybody, my name's Cole, and these are my friends Brendan and Adam, and today we're going to be talking about fracking.
I needed to distract the local environmentalist groups while I fracked the mountain.
What? You fracked the mountain?
Yeah.
Fracking has been a hot topic in recent years, so we wanted to take a deeper look into what fracking is all about and share our findings with you.
We're going to discuss what fracking is and some of the environmental impacts that it produces.
We'll also talk about the future of fracking and what can be done to fix the problems caused by it.
So with that, let's learn about what fracking is. Before we can talk about what fracking can do to the environment, I'm sure a lot of people have questions about what fracking is. Fracking, also known as hydraulic fracturing, is the process of using a pressurized water-based solution to break through shale deposits and receive oil or natural gas stored in tiny crevices. So just how did fracking come into existence? We can actually trace the roots to the Civil War. In 1865, Civil War veteran Edward Roberts developed a patent known as the exploding torpedo that he came up with after watching uses of explosive artillery during the war. The torpedo would be dropped down oil wells and detonated, then filled with water to retrieve the oil. At the time, this practice boosted oil production by 1,200%. This practice was used until 1930, when a non-explosive replacement called acid was implemented to prevent the closing of wells. In 1947, a new experiment was performed to test the use of pressurized treatments and its ability to increase energy production. While this experiment did not significantly increase production, it laid a new groundwork for modern fracking as we know it. More experiments of a similar nature were performed, and many new methods were found to be improvements upon their predecessors, with production improving so much that it even garnered the interest of President Gerald Ford in 1975. Modern fracking came into existence around 1990, when hydraulic fracturing was combined with the horizontal drilling method that we discussed earlier, which allows for more resources to be collected from shale deposits. The United States energy production dropped into the 2000s, but was brought back within the last 10 years in an attempt to combat high oil prices due to imports, which has had great success thus far. So now that you're a fracking expert, let's learn about some of the impacts that fracking can have on the environment with my friend Adam.
Now that we've learned about what fracking is and how it started, we can finally talk about the effects it may have on the environment. Most of the main issues surrounding fracking have only been around since 2010. Most of these issues revolve around groundwater infiltration and air pollution, most notably the release of greenhouse gases. Groundwater as well as surface water around a fracking well can be contaminated by a few sources. One of these could be infiltration from unlined pits used to store wastewater from fracking, or unprotected pits used to store the chemicals commonly used in fracking. Another cause could be natural gas and chemicals used in fracking seeping directly into the deep groundwater reserves through fractures. Air can be polluted through chemical exhausts released by the fracking process. Some of the chemicals that have been found to be released are benzene, toluene, methane, nitrous oxides, and xylenes. These chemicals can cause a wide range of health issues, from shortness of breath to nervous system damage. Long-term exposure to benzene can even cause blood disorders such as leukemia. Fracking can also release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and according to an article by Environmental and Energy News in March 2011, areas in the Upper Green River Basin in Wyoming, a fracking hotspot, ozone levels peaked to 124 parts per billion, which is higher than 114 parts per billion in Los Angeles, and much higher than the EPA standards of 75 parts per billion. Fracking affects the immediate area much more severely than the areas farther away from a location. There is a significantly greater environmental impact to the immediate surroundings of a fracking well. Research done by geoscientists at Mississippi State University has made substantial findings about methane migration in wells located into a shale deposit in the Appalachian Basin. The study has found that residents living within 0.8 kilometers of the well are at a greater risk for adverse health effects than those who are outside this range. There have been findings of chemicals such as methane, ethane, and propane have been found in higher concentrations in water wells within 1 kilometer of the site. In addition to this, the methane concentration within 1 kilometer of the shale gas site has been found to reach potential explosive levels.
And now for something completely different.
But perhaps one of the most surprising statistics related to fracking is the increase in seismic activity around shale gas locations. Hydraulic fracking uses pressurized water to break through large amounts of rock, which causes earthquakes that are too small for people to feel. However, When this pressure continues to build up, it can spread to a fault line in the Earth's crust, which can slightly slip and cause a larger earthquake. According to earthquakes in Oklahoma, they have been having over 300 earthquakes of magnitude 3 or higher from 2014 to 2017, with the highest number being a whopping 903 in 2015.
That's a lot of damage.
While researchers have commonly pointed to the injection of wastewater into deep wells as the root of the issue, there's plenty of evidence that fracking is a cause of equal or greater magnitude. So we know what is happening because of fracking, but why has it been allowed to happen? And what can be done to fix this? I'm going to let my friend Brendan answer those questions for you.
We've seen the extent of some of the problems that fracking can cause, but how did some of these issues become this bad? To answer this, we can point to a few different sources. One reason is that certain areas were lacking the proper tools to accurately measure the pollutants in water. For example, in Pavilion, Wyoming, the labs used to test pollution from fracking sites were the same labs that were used to test pollution at Superfund sites. The problem with this is that the chemicals the labs were designed to measure were different from the chemicals that were found in fracking solutions and natural gas emissions, and thus the important pollutants couldn't be found through testing. To combat this, tests have been created to accurately measure the soluble chemicals found in groundwater and surface water surrounding fracking wells. There has also been literature published pointing out that because of this problem, some research finding that fracking has little to no environmental impacts may be misguided. This leads into another issue that needs to be addressed, and that is misrepresented facts about what fracking is doing to the environment. A study done by the EPA found that there were 457 oil spills at hydraulic fracturing sites across 8 states between the years of 2006 and 2012. Compared to the numbers of wells across these states, this is a relatively low number. However, researchers discovered that they collected data from spills that occurred during the actual fracking process, which only takes about 3 to 10 days. These researchers did a study to find a more accurate number for the number of fracking-related spills. They found that in North Dakota, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, and Colorado combined, there were 6,648 spills. Wow. This data comes from reports that were made during all processes of fracking, from the fracturing process itself to production and transportation of the oil and gas fracked. And while the EPA was not necessarily incorrect in their report, the numbers, as you can see, can be pretty misleading. The number of spills has been going down due to factors such as stricter reporting regulations and, in Pennsylvania's case, an increase in the number of inspectors employed by states' regulators. One more important regulation that could have a positive impact on environments surrounding fracking sites is the minimum depths at which fracking can occur. As of 2016, there were no states that had regulations on how shallow a company could frack, and thus there is evidence that some of the pollution that occurred in Wyoming, as well as pollution in other western states, could have been caused by shallow fracking. Dominic DiGiulio, former environmental engineer with the EPA and current visiting scholar at Stanford, stated in California, half of the wells are fracked shallower than about 2,000 feet. This can be considered dangerously close to groundwater reserves by some experts.
Fracking has been a topic of debate for some time now, and there are plenty of people backing up both sides of the argument. On one hand, fracking has boosted our economy significantly and made us less dependent on other countries for energy, as we have seen the big drop in gas prices. On the other hand, we found plenty of evidence that fracking is negatively impacting communities surrounding well locations. Natural gas is going to be around for some time, as we currently don't have a cleaner source of energy that can be distributed at the rate the natural gas can. So the United States needs to find a healthy balance between what's right for our nation's economy and, more importantly, what's right for our planet, so that hopefully in the near future, a cleaner, safer, and more efficient energy source can come along and replace the need for fracking.
Fracking seems to be a political issue in America now. On one side, you have a side that supports no fracking whatsoever and all environmental protection, while the other side seems to neglect the protecting the environment aspect of fracking. We need to come together and realize that this is an American problem, not a left or a right problem. Fracking is something that produces a lot of good for our country, yet, as we stated, it produces a lot of bad. In order to meet somewhere in the middle, politics needs to be taken out of the equation, and we need to come together and solve a solution. Both left and right meet in the middle.
Speaking of meeting in the middle, something else is going to come out on the market at some point, but until then, we really need to do what's best for both the economy and the environment by doing with what we can with what we have.
Before we let you guys go, we want to ask you all a couple questions to see if you guys were paying attention during this video. Our first question, what type of rock is commonly drilled into during fracking? The answer to this is shale.
Which chemical, when exposed to for long periods of time, can cause blood disorders like leukemia? The answer is benzene.
As of 2016, which of the following regulations did not exist? The answer is minimum depth.
Thanks for watching today, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed it.
I hope you get a good grade.